A very warm welcome today. Good morning, mostly good afternoon to you, except for maybe Almendra from Argentina. There might be some other people in Latin America, but welcome to the 25th webinar in our Thousand Farms webinar series. My name is Rachel Chase with the Alliance of Biodiversity and SEAT. And I apologize in advance if I have a cough or if my throat goes kind of funny because I am a bit sick, but I have my water here, so we should be okay. Before we start today's webinar, would like to ask you to be sure and keep muted during the presentation, and then you can ask questions in two different ways. Either you type it into the chat even during the presentation, or you can raise your virtual hand at the end of the presentation, and that's at the React button at the bottom of your screen. So let me now introduce our today's speaker. We're very happy to have Dr. Emmanuel Mbeyagala, who is a senior researcher officer at the National Agricultural Research Organization, NARO, in Uganda, where he coordinates research on mung bean, cowpea, pigeonpea breeding. And he's also the program leader of NARO's Dryland Legume Research Program, as well as a visiting senior lecturer at Busitima University in Uganda. And today he will share the results of a multi-crop tricot trial conducted simultaneously with 4 legume crops across 350 farms in Uganda. So with that, I will unshare my screen, and Dr. Emmanuel, you can now share yours and begin your presentation when you're ready. And be sure.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much for.
Can I just say, I wanted to say one thing to our audience, that unfortunately, your webcam is not working today, so we won't be able to see Emmanuel, but we can hear him clearly. So with that, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are. I am Emmanuel, as Rachel has introduced. I'm unable to share my screen. I have camera issues, but I'm going to share just a slide here so you can see, you can attach the voice to the person. Not so sure whether you can see that.
Momentarily, I think we will be able to see it. There, now we can see you. Yes.
Yes, so just that slide shows who is talking to you, and we'll be spending the next few minutes talking about the things that we have been doing with tricot. So let me share now the main thing. Kindly confirm if you can see it.
I can see it. Just you need to put it into slide mode, that's all.
Yeah, from my side, it is in slide mode. I hope it is now in slide mode.
Yeah, just a little delay. It's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, so I am going to briefly highlight what we have been doing on fast-tracking farm evaluation of multi-crop advanced lines in Uganda using the tricot methodology. This work was supported by the 1,000 Farms Catalytic Project, and we are grateful to Alliance of Biodiversity and SEAT. I'm glad I've seen Van Iten here, Jacob, for giving us the funds to do this work. And the names you see on the screen are the people that were participating in this project, small project. and I am making a presentation on their behalf. When time for questions comes, they will be able to answer the questions. I am simply projecting this on their behalf, but the questions, they will be able to take the questions. So in this project, we were targeting 4 crops, pigeonpea, finger millet, cowpea, and sorghum. And by way of brief introduction, the 4 crops are key food and cash crops in the eastern and the northern parts of the country. And in this project, what we looked out for was to validate farmer preference of recently released varieties, as well as evaluating those materials that are nearing release, nearing submission for consideration for release. And the overall aim that we were looking at in this work was to create a network of on-farm testing areas to support our national as well as regional breeding programs, such that instead of say a program independently going out to recruit farmers every other time, we thought that this work would give us a foundation for establishing that network, whereby if we have materials that we want to test in the subsequent years, we can always use that network. And that was the overall focus of this work. So for some of you that are on call on this webinar and are hearing about tricot for the first time, tricot in full is triadic comparison of technologies. Tri is 3, meaning that a farmer will only test 3 options or 3 technologies out of a large set. And these technologies, which could be varieties, are assigned randomly. So each farmer will be establishing what we call incomplete blocks. And the identities of the technologies or the varieties that are being assessed by each farmer are anonymized. They are blinded at the when starting to avoid to take out any kind of bias. But at the conclusion of the trials, the identities of the technologies that each farmer tested are revealed. And of course, in this method of tricot, the farmers use rankings to assess the technologies, the 3 technologies, and where they give ranking for best or worst for each trait that is considered. So that is just a recap, a summary of what tricot is all about. And there is a lot of information on the net about tricot. So in this project, as a way of the materials and the methods that we used during implementation, we had trial sites in the eastern and in the northern parts of the country. And in the northern, we had 3 districts, as mentioned there, Oyam, Kole, Lira. And in the eastern, we had about 8 districts. And as you can see on the map, the red-blue circles indicate where those districts are. And in this work, we worked with about 350 farmers, and these were recruited based on gender, their familiarity with the crop or experience, and their interest in the project. And we relied on field agents, and we had 20 field agents in total that helped us with the implementation of this work, as well as collection of the feedback from farmers. And by way of design, again, this is we use the standard tricot design, where we used Clean Mode. This is an online tool to design the experiment. And of course, because we were dealing with 4 different crops, on Clean Mode, we had to create a separate project for each crop. And of course, at the end of it all, Clean Mode does the randomization, and it will anonymize the packages. And after that, gives you an output a form which you use to register farmers, and we registered the farmers using ODK, which our agents, we helped the agents to install on their phones, Android phones. And after farmer registration and distribution of the seed packages, on-farm trials were planted, and then the observations were taken from emergence up to post-harvest. And at the end during that time, data was being collected and submitted by our agents. And of course, we again had to go back to Clean Mode to do the analysis. So in summary, this is what we followed, and this is the standard tricot design outline. So a little bit about the design. We were dealing with 4 crops. So for cowpea, we had 8 varieties, a mixture of the varieties as well as the candidate lines. Pigeonpea, we had 5. Sorghum, we had 8. Finger millet, we had 9. So in total, each farmer received 4 packages. And as you can see on this, on my left, as you can see on the left of the screen, each package has 3 options. Each package has 3 technology options. So in total, each farmer received 12 technologies. So 4 packages times 3, because each package has 3 options, A, B, and C. So the anonymous names of the varieties were A, B, and C. So this is what took place. This is when some of the colleagues and the field agents were doing the registration of the farmers. So these paper bags you are seeing are the ones that are having the seeds for the different technologies or for the different varieties. So we went ahead and established, of course, the farmers and the agents were guided on how to establish the trials, and for each crop, the options, the different technology options were established side by side, and they were planted side by side, preferably on the same day. And of course, these were small plots of about 4 rows and 5 meters. And we encouraged the farmers to give each of the plots the same management. For example, if it is weeding for a crop, they weed the 3 plots on the same day. And then from that work, of course, we got some results that I want to highlight. I'm just giving you the highlights of what we got from that work. So, and here I'm just picking on a few the key highlights. So looking at cowpea, we had 4 released varieties. As you can see, these ones with a blue bar besides them. And then we had 4 candidate materials up here. And of these, Secao 2 is one of the most, Secao 2W is one of the most popular, the widely grown cowpea varieties in the country. It is an old variety. It's about 27 years old now. And then the 3 here, NARO cow 1, 2, and 5 are recently released varieties that have not yet diffused so much into the community. So we brought them in to see how they are rated against the popular check, and as well as the candidates. And I will just draw you to this plot on the lower bottom right, looking at cacao, for example. You can see on the bottom right in this graph here that the mean rankings given by farmers in terms of overall preference showed that this line Ayi, which is an introduction from, I think, Ghana, was really significantly different. The mean preference ranking was really high, as you can see. And this was followed by IT 06K-281-1. Although, of course, this other one with a green tag is not so significantly different from the three, from these other two candidate lines, as well as the two release varieties, the three release varieties. But you can see that overall, the candidate lines, as well as the recently released cowpea varieties, were ranked highly than Secao 2. And when it comes to looking at the correlation, which other cowpea traits were more highly correlated with overall preference, we see that for cowpea, it was mainly the color of the grain, followed by the potential for the market potential, followed by grain size, followed by yield. And of course, farmers also indicated that the earliness to podding is also another trait. So these are traits that we as people in the breeding field for cowpea would look at for when it comes to cowpea improvement. And of course, these were out of about 20 different traits, but farmers highlighted only these. And when it comes for pigeonpea, we had two released materials being rated against three others. But again, we see that there is really no significant difference in terms of preference ranking, mean ranking by the farmers. And you can see this clearly here. So meaning that there is a lot of work we may have to do on this. Of course, two of these, ICEP 557 and 554, yes, their rankings were a little bit up there, but of course they were similar to CAT 60 stroke 8. So not so much difference. When it comes to the traits that farmers, the traits that were highly correlated with overall preference in terms of pigeonpea, a number of traits came up here: grain size, seeds per pod, market potential, the color of the grain, the pod yield, the pod size, ease of threshing, the yield of the grain, and these were followed by pod color, plant height, plant population at maturity, and the number of pods, as well as the branching pattern. So these were the traits that were highly correlated with overall preference. Now, when it comes to sorghum, we had three release varieties, recently released varieties, being compared against 5 candidate lines. Of all these, you can see on this graph the log worth. Of course, here we can see, just looking at NARO 4, for example, we can see that the candidate materials are actually performing two of the recently released varieties. So you can see it in this middle graph here. And of course, what is showed on these other graphs on the sides also reflect the same information.
Emmanuel,
So here we see that narrow
Emmanuel.
sorghum 4 and narrow, yes.
Ah, there it is. There was a delay with
Yes.
the sorghum graph, but it just appeared. So it's okay. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I can go over it again. So we can see that from this from the sorghum overall preference graph, we can see that narrow sorghum 2 and narrow sorghum 4, which are recently released varieties, are still were rated highly, were ranked highly than the candidate varieties, the candidate lines. Of course, of all those, the released ones, narrow sorghum 1 didn't perform so well. And these are the traits when looking at the correlation coefficients for traits that were highly correlated with the overall preference for sorghum. We see farmers looked at markets, they looked at the yield, they looked at the grain color, the size of the grain, the yield of the stover, and the ease of threshing as key traits. Of course, these are out of about 20, out of like 25 different traits. And finally, when it comes to finger millet, we in this project we had 5 released varieties. Of these, Seremi 2 is one of these, is the oldest. Narrow Mill 2, 3, 4, and 5 are recently released varieties. And from these plots, comparing the released vis-a-vis the candidate materials, we can see that narrow mill 4 is actually outstanding, was rated as outstanding, and this was followed by narrow mill 5. And again, narrow mill 5 is also a recently released variety, only that here during the analysis, clean mode only allows you to include 4 controls, but we had 5. So it is appearing up here, as you can see. So we can see from here that that again, the candidates are not performing beyond, were not really preferred compared to the release ones, to the 2 release ones. So, of course, this is single seasons data. Perhaps if we run this over maybe 2 more seasons, maybe we could confirm whether this trend is true or not. And these were the traits that were highly correlated with overall preference: the color of the grain, the market potential, the size of the grain, the yield of the stover, ease of threshing, the length of the panicles, the height of the plants, the population of plants at maturity, and the resistance to lodging at maturity, in that order. So again, this informs any future millet breeding initiatives with regard to the regions that we worked on. And these are some of the pictures. Now, like for example, this particular plot, you can see down here, there was striga. But surprisingly, when farmers were looking at the traits that they think are highly correlated with overall preference, for example, striga didn't show up. This is one of the plots for pigeonpea. This is for finger millet, and this is now where we visited one of the farmers who had just finished harvesting her 3 cowpea plots, and now this was the pods, having the pods from the 3 plots ready to be threshed and also, of course, after looking at assessing the pod traits preference by the agents. Now, of course, as we were doing this work, there were a few challenges that we encountered, and I'm just highlighting some here. One is seasonal variations. Of course, to some, this should not be, it should not be like something new, but what we mean here is that even within a district or a sub-county within a district or just within a parish, what we noticed is that once seed was distributed, farmers registered and given seed, even within villages that were near each other, there were delays in the onset of rains. So that meant that farmers in one village would plant while the others would have to wait for about 10 days or 2 weeks before they would plant. And of course, that was that became a challenge because there was overlap of data collection. So the agents had to make several rounds. Then there was misinterpretation of instructions by the agents and sometimes by the farmers. For example, sometimes you would find you've given a package with 3 options, so a farmer would only plant one variety, one technology, and leaves the others. Because to them, once they perceived that, okay, they want to rank and choose the best. So by just looking at the grain, a farmer says, I choose this, and leaves out planting the others. The other one is farmers. Of course, the farmers received 4 packages, 12 technologies, but then decides to stagger the planting them at different times. Yet our focus was to make sure that when the agent goes to collect data at a given stage, say emergence, he will collect data on the 4 crops at a go, and so. And of course, the other challenge that we noticed is, of course, pigeonpea. For example, the earliest variety we had in pigeonpea would take about 120 days to mature. Now compare that to a crop like cowpea, which takes about a month earlier, like 80 to 90 days. So in a way, again, that meant that the agents had to make several unplanned rounds to collect farmers' feedback. And of course, the other thing that we had were the distances between the farmers and the field agents were in some places was a bit long. And in that case, it was difficult for the agents to monitor the farmers in time and get their responses. And in some cases, of course, agents lost contact. There were also logistical challenges, and this comes to do with the poor network. Sometimes you would phone network, sometimes you would want to follow up with the agent, and you spend a whole week calling them because where they are, the phone network just doesn't work. The last one is the lack of flexibility in the clean mode syntax. And we noticed this. Our initial plan was to recruit about 550 farmers. But because the farmers, the agents that we're working with, on their gadgets, after, for example, registering one farmer for a given crop and submitting that information, they thought that once they have done it for one crop, they imagine that maybe they have also submitted the registration for the same farmers on other crops. So we had some numbers drop out there because we had to close the registration before so that we could move to data collection when some of the information was still on the farm, on the agents' gadgets. So those are the key challenges that we highlighted. So with that, I want to thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mbala. I thank you. Yes, very interesting experience that you had, and nice challenges and lessons to share with all of us, especially dealing with multiple crops at the same time, which isn't a very common way to do tricot, but can be very efficient, as we've seen, and produce also new challenges. So let's talk about those. I think we have a few. Yes, we have a few questions in the chat already, so I'll start with those. And then in the meantime, if anyone would like to raise their virtual hand, they can do so to ask their question. Just click on the React button at the bottom of the screen. So let me just start with the question from Bella Tinkin, who is no longer on the call, but he said that he would look at the recording later for your answer. He says, thanks for a great presentation. Was there any disaggregation between different farmers according to region, gender, or any other social dimension? Also, with regards to how the overall preferences relates to the individual traits, such as post-harvest processing traits. So if you'd like to just answer that question first.
Rachel, thanks. I'm just looking for my other colleagues. I'm sure Richard is there and all the others. Richard, could you please take on that answer, that question?
I can repeat the question, Richard, or you can look at it in the chat. If you click on the chat, you'll see the question from Bella. But I'm happy to repeat it as well. Is Richard on the call? Let's see.
Yes, Richard is on the call. What we have, if I can respond as Richard maybe gets ready, if I can respond to Bella's question. What I have presented here is preliminary results. We have not yet gone deeper to break this our findings as per region, gender, and other social dimensions. We have not yet gone into that because already, of course, when during registration, we captured a lot of socioeconomic data. For example, education level, age, and all that from the farmers. So we will be looking at this data in detail to get to know how each of those factors or variables influenced the preferences. But so the quick answer I can give is that we have not yet gone into the detail of breaking this down.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I'll go to Clifton now, who's raised his hand, and then we'll go back to the questions on the chat. So Clifton, go ahead.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, Emmanuel, for the very nice presentation. My comment generally goes to some of the challenges you also mentioned. I was thinking, okay, maybe this is one farmer is evaluating, if I understood correctly, 4 crops and then three varieties within crops. That's more like 12 technology options. So I had a question, probably you haven't gone into this yet. As you said, you are still working on this data, but I was curious, how does this setup increase the complexity in terms of what a farmer can actually evaluate and consistently track at the same time. Of course, the good side, like you mentioned, is on how it can be maybe cost effective or efficient, but how does it influence the way, for example, this increase in complexity, how does it influence farmer varietal choices and being able to consistently track these evaluations that come at different points in time, and then at the end pick, okay, for these 4 crops, these are the best varieties for the farmer. I don't know if you have any comment, but it's something I think that would be good to get from the farmers, maybe in terms of feedback sessions, and see how complex was this, for example. But thank you for the nice presentation. Thank you, Rache.
Okay. Yes, Clifton. Yes, I get your concern, but I think given that each farmer was simply evaluating 3 different varieties of each crop, and these are different crops, I don't think there is a lot of complexity in this. One, these farmers have been growing these crops, and they are always growing these crops anyway. One of the criteria at the start of the presentation was that we selected farmers that are familiar with these crops. So it was not that it is something we were taking crops that are completely new to them. These are crops that they are aware of. So by just looking at the 3 options per crop, I don't think there was any complexity in it. But again, we can, our socioeconomists who are part of the team can dig deeper into this, maybe in some other follow-up discussions, to see if really there were any complexities that farmers perceive. But from where I stand, I don't see. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Let me just go to another question in the chat, and then we'll go to Stephen, who has his hand raised. So we had a question from Jakob, who also had to leave the call for another meeting, but he says, let's see. Great work, Emmanuel. Perhaps you can comment a bit more on the benefits, challenges of working with several crops at once. So you touched on that just now, but maybe you could talk a bit more about the benefits. And then also he says the Climate Challenge, so that's about the registration of farmers, will be solved in an upcoming version of the software. So yes, so we're aware of this, and it will be corrected in the next version. So that's important for everyone to know. But perhaps you can talk a bit more about the benefits of working with the 4 crops at once, Emmanuel.
Thank you, Rachel. Again, this was pilot work. We wanted to see, is it feasible? It was like a proof of concept. And so far from the results that we have, we see that it is feasible. The thing is, these farmers, our farmers, in as much as we say they are smallholder and they are resource constrained, they are very objective and very rational. So they will be able to make judgment decisions on a daily basis, complex decisions on a daily basis. So because they are always handling more than one enterprise, whether in crop, whether in poultry, whether in animal, we see that from so far what we have, it is feasible for them to handle the 4 different crops. Of course, to us as the research team, it has the added benefit that if you are to get data from that data collection point, the cost is you are saving on the cost. Imagine if you were to go, you had 4 different farmers, each is working on one crop. you can see the investment of reaching out to all of those. So this, we were trying this out because the resources are not infinite that we are always working with. Yes. I hope that answers Jacobo's.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you very much. We'll go to Stephen now. You can unmute and ask your question, please.
Yeah, good evening, everyone from Uganda. I think I'll have a couple of comments that I was preferring that Rachel goes through the chats first, but I can give it a shot. Emmanuel has already talked about the objective of this work and even the catalytic funding. It was about creating networks, which was actually testing the multi-crop concept of testing across programs. You can imagine Emmanuel is in legumes and then their colleagues who are in cereals. And you have almost the same farmers growing the different crops. So this was to test that, and I think it's almost passing the litmus paper for this. And with Emmanuel's experiences, it will provide a lot of guidance on how to proceed with this forward. As he has indicated also, financial bug is becoming smaller and smaller. So if people learn a lot from this and then they're able to do things across program, because you're in the same institute and you end up going to different places and communicating differently as if you are from different places. So this helps to bridge that gap and then also create a network for this multi-crop on-farm testing. Regarding that, that's a comment, but I was just wondering if I've been looking some of the pictures. I think there's still a bit of a problem with the crop establishment design in terms of what gap do you leave between plots, because I can see some of the plots looked fused. And then also in terms of which crop is preferred by a farmer, because if a farmer's main crop is millet and the least preferred crop is, let's say, cowpea, and then that brings the question is whether that farmer is the real one to evaluate that crop. So this needs a lot of preliminary studies on allocation of crop per preference. That's one. Two, in terms of comments also, I've looked at the data that Emmanuel has presented in terms of performance of candidates and checks. I think this speaks a lot of volumes for the breeding program in terms of the current breeding approaches. How does the specific variety that you are trying to release compare with the existing varieties? Is it right to replace the existing varieties right now or not? If you look at the data carefully, you would see some of the replacement approaches may be introducing varieties, yet people still think the existing varieties are much better off. In terms of your challenges in package allocation and the differences in planting, I think we had come with a way of doing this. I'm surprised that I'm seeing this in Uganda, because most times, most areas in Uganda almost receive rain at the same time. We had seen these challenges in Tanzania, which is really, really vast in terms of weather patterns. But also, you may need to understand the different areas in terms of when they receive rainfall and when the rainfall is adequate for planting, so that you stagger the planting, not really the planting per farmer, but per area in terms of the seasonal rainfall. And that also goes with the issues of the climate registrations, which we had come up with a solution before, where you would first pre-register farmers, and then you don't have to you close that pre-registration and you don't have to face the challenge of differences in planting. But as Jacob mentioned, the coming versions will solve that problem completely. Yeah, I'll stop there for now.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. So I think all of those were comments, unless I'm wrong. There weren't any questions in there. Just, yeah.
Yeah, Rachel,
Go
thank
ahead.
you. And of course, Stephen is part of this. Much as I omitted his name, is part of the project. So he's part of the implementing team. Thank you, Stevie.
Okay, good. So that's very constructive, Stephen. Let me go back to the chat now. I have some comments here and there, but I'm looking at the questions. There's one from Winifred who says, are we at a stage where we can recommend varieties for regions based on the data? That's to you, Emmanuel.
I'm looking at, I said I was presenting on behalf of very many people here. I have Dr. Scovia here. I have Richard. I have Sophie. They need to respond to that question.
Okay, who would like to respond?
Maybe Dr. Scovia or Richard or Sophie, that order.
Okay, Dr. Scovia, would you like to unmute?
Can you just repeat the question?
Yes. Are you at a stage where you can recommend varieties for regions or areas based on the data?
You're asking at what stage do we recommend the varieties per region or area?
Yeah, are you at the stage yet where you can recommend varieties to farmers? It seems like maybe you aren't, just because some of the analysis is yet to be done. But the question is, can you recommend varieties?
For the case of released varieties, I think that one can easily be taken across because we needed to popularize it among the community. And since their performance is still very good, I think, yeah, it just needs popularization across the community. The beauty is with the released variety, they were already tested for the stability across the environments. And so they are adaptable to most of the environment, because in Uganda, when we are releasing a variety, we release those varieties that are stable across most environment in the country. So for the release variety, yes. For the variety that is still in pipeline, no, we cannot recommend its adaptability as per now until we finish all the evaluation. Yeah.
Okay. Is that for all 4 crops or just... Are you talking about all 4 crops there?
I'm standing on behalf of cereals. I'm more of a cereal work, sorghum, millet. So, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Sorghum and millet. Okay, thank you. So in the chat, Gozanga said, due to the wide variation in maturity among the tested crops, did you consider setting up separate CLIMOB projects? I think the answer was yes. That Emmanuel, you said at the beginning that you set it up as separate projects for each crop, correct?
Yes, and that is how it is supposed to be. Whether the crops, as long as they are different crops, whether they have the same maturity, because they are different crops, the current setup of clean mode is that you create them as separate projects. Yeah,
correct.
I think, Rachel, the better thing would be for the future work is to align these projects according to the target product profiles. It becomes a little easier that most of these crops subscribe to the same products, and the variations in some of these attributes is not that much.
Right. Okay, thank you, Stephen. I have a couple of questions in the chat that are really related to methodology. So Daniel's asking about analytical tools, and then Anna asked about the randomization done in CLIMOB. I think for those questions, we can just refer both of you and everybody listening to the reference book for Tricot, because you will be able to find all of the information about how to carry out a Tricot trial in the online reference book that was just published. Now, I will give you the link to that very shortly. I'm just looking at the chat to see if there are any questions that are specific to your trial. How does okay, the same for Moringa, I think asking about in general tricot questions. Okay, there's a message from Sanusi saying that they run the tricot trials in Nigeria with 3 crops, groundnut, millet, and sorghum simultaneously in the same farmer fields. However, they run the crop as a separate entity, each crop as a separate entity, as different projects run by the same individual farmers. Sanusi, maybe you would like to open your mic and explain how that project differs from the project in Uganda, and maybe kind of explain what you think are the benefits of that as running as a different project instead of the same project.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Actually, what we did was, you may recall, biodiversity gave some small grant, which 3 scientists, actually 4 of us came together to write a proposal, with each one working separately. So we proposed to work on groundnut, millet, and sorghum, and each of these crops was run separately in the CLIMO for randomization and assignment of the genotypes to farmers. But we decided that we will conduct them in the same locations with the same farmers. So it saves us a lot of resources because Nigeria is such a big country and the testing sites are wide. So while the 4 of us were working in different states, we have states in Nigeria, 36 of them, and we worked in about 8, 9 of them. So each of us managed the trials in 3 states. And these states are in different agroecologies. But the most important thing about it is that all the crops are grown by the same farmers in the same locations. So instead of each individual scientist going to the same location with individual crops, we decided to work together so that the millet scientist goes along with groundnut and sorghum, so also the sorghum scientist goes along with groundnut and millet. So it really saves us a lot of time, and we work together harmoniously without any issue. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your experience. Are there any other questions or comments from anybody before we close? All right. As I said before, I referred to the online reference book of tricot. I have that here in this slide that you can see. So this is just to remind you that we have a lot of resources online that you can access. It's our website, thousandfarms.net. It talks about the project itself. We have our Community of Practice website, which I hope that all of you are part of. And if not, please go to it and sign up for free. And then you can engage with other people working on tricot and watch all of the webinars, previous webinars in this series. And that's where this webinar will also be held. And then finally, we have the Tricot online reference book at learn.climob.net, where you can learn everything you need to know about the different steps of tricot and more resources, case studies. And that's just been released in the last few weeks. So I urge you to check that out. And that's all for me. I'd like to say a very big thanks to Dr. Mbeyagala again for presenting today his work and the work of his colleagues. And thank you to you all for joining us. It's been a pleasure to see you today and talk about tricot. And let's see you next time. Thank you very much. Goodbye.